Welcome dear students once again to Rayat Online School Education Program. Myself Professor P.B. Sargade from Sadhguru Gadge Maharaj College Karad, and we were studying the most important topic from our biology syllabus, that is control and coordination, and this is the third lecture of our topic. And now we will see in detail the next part of our topic. In our last lecture, we have started the study of human nervous system, and in that we have studied the forebrain. Now, when we talk about the human nervous system, as described you earlier in the previous lectures, the human nervous system, it is formed of three parts. The first is central nervous system or CNS. The second is peripheral nervous system or PNS, and the third is autonomic or autonomous nervous system or ANS. Again, as described in the earlier lecture, the central nervous system or CNS is further classified into brain and spinal cord. And in brain, as discussed earlier, there are three parts: forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. In the peripheral nervous system or PNS, there are two parts or two divisions: cranial nerves and spinal nerves. The cranial nerves, they arise from the brain, and the spinal nerves, they arise from the spinal cord. Now we'll talk about the autonomic nervous system or ANS. It is further divided into sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Now this is a brief account about the human nervous system. We have seen this chart in detail in our previous lecture also. Now moving forward, we have studied the forebrain. Now we'll study today the midbrain. Now what is midbrain? We have seen the diagrams of the brain, the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain in previous lecture. Now recall these diagrams. Now when we talk about the midbrain, it is located between diencephalon and the pons varolii. As described in the earlier figures, this midbrain is located between diencephalon and the pons varolii. It consists of two parts, that is corpora quadrigemina and crura cerebri. Moving forward, these tracts of ascending and descending nerve fibers from RAS and connect the cerebrum midbrain. Near the center of the midbrain is a mass of gray matter scattered within the white matter, and it is called the red nucleus. It plays an important role in controlling posture and muscle tone, then modifying some motor activities and motor coordination. Now this was about the midbrain. Moving forward, the next part of the brain is hindbrain. Now when we talk about the hindbrain, as the name suggests, it is the posterior part of the brain. Then it consists of pons varolii, cerebellum, not cerebrum. Remember the spelling cerebellum, cerebellum. Then medulla oblongata. The hindbrain consists of these parts, and we will see one by one in the stepwise manner all these parts. What is the cerebellum? The cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain and consists of two lateral hemispheres and a central vermis. If you observe the diagram which I have shown you in the previous lecture, you will find that the cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain, which is present towards the posterior part of the brain, and it consists of two lateral hemispheres and a central vermis. It is composed of white matter with a thin layer of gray matter. It is called as the cortex. The white matter, it intermixes with the gray matter and shows a tree-like pattern called as arbor vitae. See the spelling. Now these specific terminologies, they may be asked in the multiple choice questions. or single sentence answer questions. So you have to remember these terminologies. The surface of cerebellum shows convolutions as described in the earlier lecture. They are called as gyri and sulci. A number of nuclei lie deep within each lateral or cerebellar hemisphere. Over 30 million neurons lie in the cortex. Now remember, over 30 million neurons lie in the cortex. Now these are the parts of the cerebellum. Then 3 pairs of myelinated nerve bundles called cerebellar peduncles connect cerebellum to the other parts of the CNS. Now all of you know that what is meant by CNS? CNS means central nervous system. Then it is an important center which maintains equilibrium of body, then posture, balancing orientation, moderation of voluntary movements, maintenance of muscle tone. It is a regulatory center for neuromuscular activities and controls the rapid activities like walking, running, speaking, etc. These rapid activities, they are controlled by that region. All activities cerebellum controls are involuntary, though it may involve learning in early stages. Okay, now this was about the cerebellum, and the next part is the medulla oblongata. Now, what is medulla oblongata? The medulla oblongata is posterior conical part of the brain. It continues as the spinal cord. Now remember this, very much important, because medulla oblongata, it continues as the spinal cord. A question may be asked on this point. It has inner gray matter and outer white matter. It controls involuntary vital functions like heartbeat, respiration, vasomotor activities, and peristalsis. Now the peristalsis is a very peculiar movement from which a food bolus passes from mouth towards the stomach through the esophagus or food tube, and that motion is called as peristalsis. It also controls non-vital reflex activities like coughing, sneezing, swallowing, vomiting, yawning, etc. The medulla oblongata, it consists of these parts and it controls all these activities. Now moving forward, the next part in this, the cavity of medulla is called fourth ventricle or metacele. Its roof has the posterior choroid plexus for the secretion of CSF or cerebrospinal fluid. The posterior choroid plexus also shows 3 openings: a pair of lateral foramen of Luschka, a median foramen of Magendie. Now a pair of, it means 2 lateral foramen of Luschka and a median foramen of Magendie. It means it has 3 openings. Next, the spinal cord. Now this was about the brain. We have studied the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. We have seen the diagrams also. Now what about the spinal cord? The spinal cord extends from medulla of the brain downward almost the whole length of the backbone. Now the spinal cord, we will discuss it later on. It runs through the neural canal of the vertebral column, which is present in each and every vertebrae starting from the first vertebrae up to the lumbar vertebrae. So it is also wrapped in same 3 meninges as the brain, and the space between them contains the same cerebrospinal fluid. Now in previous lecture we have studied that the brain is covered or it is protected by 3 meninges. These 3 meninges are same here in case of the spinal cord, and it contains the same cerebrospinal fluid or CSF. The arrangement of white and gray matter is reversed in it. Now the arrangement of white and gray matter is reversed in case of the spinal cord. That is, white matter is outside and the gray matter is inside. Now remember, the white matter is outside and the gray matter is inside. Now moving forward, moving towards the next slide. externally, the spinal cord appears as long cylindrical rod of 42 to 45 centimeters long and 2 to 2.5 centimeters broad. Now it is a long cylindrical structure having the length of approximately 42 to 45 centimeters and about long and about 2 to 2.5 centimeter broad. The spinal cord is broadest at its anterior end and it gradually tapers into conus medullaris. Now this conus medullaris is at the L1 and L2. It means lumbar 1 and lumbar 2 vertebra. Now you have studied the vertebral column, axial and appendicular skeleton in your standard 11. Now recall those structure of the vertebral column. Now this is L1 and L2. And it continues as a thread-like filum terminale. Now then it extends and it moves and continues as a thread-like filum terminale and end posteriorly. The spinal cord shows two swellings along its length called cervical and lumbar swellings. Then 31 pairs of spinal nerves arise from lateral sides of the spinal cord. These nerves are concentrated in the region of cervical and lumbar swelling and around the conus medullaris. Now we have discussed about the conus medullaris. The bunch of nerves in the hind part of the spinal cord along with the filum terminale appears like a horse tail. Now remember, you have a diagram in our textbook. It appears like a horse tail. So it is called as posteriormost or end part. It is called as quada equina. Now so many times the multiple choice questions are asked on this point. So it looks like or appears like a horse tail. So it is called as quada equina. Now moving forward. Now this is the TS of spinal cord. When we take out the transverse section of spinal cord, we are going to see the structures as follows as shown in this diagram. Now this is the posterior median fissure here. Then this is the anterior median fissure. Then this structure, it looks like horns. Now these two, this part and this part, they are called as dorsal root. Then this is called as dorsal horn. Then there is a septum which is from the posterior median fissure. It is called as posterior median septum. Then the in white color shown is the white matter. Then the matter which is shown in dotted here in gray color is gray matter. Then there is presence of central canal in between the transverse section or in between the spinal cord. Then this is the dorsal horn as explained you earlier. Then this is the lateral horn in the middle and this is the ventral horn. And at the end it shows a ventral root. At the dorsal point it shows dorsal root on this side and on this side. And here it shows ventral root on this side and this side also. And these black colored or these are the coverings and they are called as meninges. What they are called as meninges. Now moving forward, now this was about the TS of spinal cord. Now we will talk in detail about these points again. The spinal cord is dorso-ventrally flattened due to the presence of deep, narrow posterior fissure and shallow, broad anterior fissure. A central canal can be seen in the center as seen in the earlier diagram. The fissures which divide the spinal cord incompletely into a right and left side. The gray matter is somewhat H-shaped or butterfly shaped and is on the inner side, while the white matter is on the outer side. Now remember this difference. The gray matter is inside and the white matter is outside. The fissure divides the gray matter into 6 horns as seen in the previous diagram, namely dorsal, lateral and ventral horns, while the white matter is divisible into 6 columns or faniculi, namely dorsal, lateral and ventral faniculi. the dorsal and ventral horns extend out of the spinal cord as dorsal root and ventral root of spinal cord, respectively. Of these, the dorsal root is connected to the dorsal root ganglion. It lies just outside and lateral to the spinal cord. It has an aggregation or collection of unipolar sensory neurons. Now, this was about the TS of spinal cord. Moving forward, now the more information about this, the association of interneurons lie inside the gray matter. They receive signal from the sensory nerve, integrate it and direct the response towards motor neurons lying toward the ventral horn. The lateral horns have neurons of autonomic nervous system or ANS. The nerves arising from these neurons emerge out from the ventral root of spinal nerve. The white matter consists mainly of bundles of myelinated nerve fibers called ascending and descending tracts. Now remember these words. They are called as ascending and descending tracts. The ascending tracts, they conduct sensory impulses from spinal cord to the brain, and these lie in the dorsal column or faniculi. The descending tracts conduct motor impulses from brain to the lateral and ventral faniculi of spinal cord. Now this was about the spinal cord. All parts and all the functions are described in a proper manner. Now moving towards the next slide. What are the functions of spinal cord? Now this is very much important point and study it carefully. Functions of spinal cord. The first function is the spinal cord carry out reflexes below the neck. Below the neck, the reflexes are carried out by the spinal cord. Then it conducts sensory impulses from the skin and muscles to the brain. It conducts motor responses from the brain to the trunk and limbs. Then moving forward, the peripheral nervous system or PNS. The peripheral nervous system consists of all nerves arising from the brain and the spinal cord. It consists of two kinds of pathways. The afferent, that is also called as receiving sensory pathways, and efferent, that is carrying away motor pathways. The peripheral nerves are classified into two types: cranial nerves, which are connected to the brain, and second, the spinal nerves, which are connected to the spinal cord. Remember, in peripheral nervous system, cranial nerves, they connect to the brain, and spinal nerves, they connect to the spinal cord. Moving forward, what are the cranial nerves? We will see in detail the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. The cranial nerves, these nerves develop from the brain in all amniotes. All amniotes means reptiles, birds and mammals. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Roman numbering from 1 to 12 is used to denote them. These nerves originate from or terminate into the brain. Okay, now this point is important. These nerves originate from or terminate into the brain. According to their function, these are classified as sensory nerves, sensory cranial nerves. Which are those nerves? Remember these numbers: first, second and eighth. These are sensory nerves. Then motor nerves, third, fourth, then sixth, 11th and 12th. And mixed type of nerves, 5th, 7th, 9th and 10th nerves. Sensory, motor and mixed type of nerves, they are in the cranial nerves, or cranial nerves are of three types: sensory, motor and mixed type. Then moving forward, now these diagrams, they show the origination of the cranial nerves. Now on this diagram where I am showing the cursor, this is the olfactory region and this is the olfactory nerve. Here is the optic, then this is the oculomotor, this is the trochlear or trochlear, then abducens, this is the trigeminal, this is the facial here, then this is the glossopharyngeal here, then this is the vagus, this is the vestibulocochlear here, this is the hypoglossal, and this is the cranial accessory. It means it is showing these 12 nerves. Now here in this diagram, these nerves, they are having the numbers. The first is olfactory here as shown in this diagram. The second is optic here. Then the third is oculomotor here. Here is oculomotor. Now here the label is here. Oculomotor. Then the fourth is trochlear or trochlear. Then fifth is trigeminal. Sixth is abducens. Seventh is facial, giving to the facial face. Then vestibulocochlear. Then glossopharyngeal. 10th is vagus. 11th is accessory, and the 12th is hypoglossal. Now these are the cranial nerves, and here in these diagrams the cranial nerves, they are visible in a proper manner, and you have to study this diagram in detail, and you have to remember the names of the cranial nerves. Now this was about the cranial nerves. When you talk about the cranial nerves, now here a chart is there in our book also. The nerve number and name, the composition of the nerve and the functions of the nerve. Now the first is olfactory as described in the earlier diagram. It is sensory only. It has the function of olfaction, that is smell. Then the second is optic. It is sensory only composition. Then it is related with the vision, sense of vision. Then the third is oculomotor. It is motor and sensory. It serves muscles of the eye. Then fourth is trochlear. It is motor and sensory, that is mixed type of. It serves the superior oblique eye muscle. Then the fifth is trigeminal. It is of mixed type, motor and sensory. Now the function sensory from face and mouth, motor to muscles of mastication, that is chewing. Then the sixth is abducens. It is motor and sensory, serves the lateral rectus eye muscle or rectus eye muscle. Then the seventh is facial. It is motor and sensory. It is also mixed type. It serves the muscles of facial expression, lacrimal glands and salivary glands. Then the vestibulocochlear. It is sensory only. It is having the function of equilibrium and hearing. Then glossopharyngeal. It is motor and sensory. It serves the pharynx, that is throat, for swallowing, posterior third of tongue, and parotid, that is the salivary gland. Then the 10th is vagus. It is the motor and sensory composition. It shows, or it is having the function of sensation from visceral, that is internal organs, and parasympathetic motor regulation of visceral organs. Then accessory. It is having the composition of motor and sensory. It serves muscles that move head, neck and shoulders. Then the 12th is hypoglossal. It is having the composition of motor and sensory and serves the function of, serves the muscles of the tongue. Now this was about the cranial nerves. I have shown you the nerve number and name, then composition of the nerve and the functions of the nerve. Now from the point of view of your theory exam and NEET, NEET and CET papers, you have to study and remember all these cranial nerves, their numbers, their names, their composition and their functions. Now moving forward to the next slide, we will talk about the spinal nerves. Spinal nerves, when we talk about them, 31 pairs of spinal nerves originate from the spinal cord. They are mixed nerves and they provide two-way communication between the spinal cord and part of the upper and lower limbs, neck and trunk. Now this was about the brief account of the spinal nerves. Now moving towards in detail the number and types of spinal nerves. Now remember these points. These are the groups, these are the number of pairs, and this is the region of origin from vertebral column. Now the group is cervical group. It means it is located in the neck region. Number of pairs, there are 8 pairs from the C1 vertebra to the C8. C means cervical, C1 to C8 vertebra. Then the region of origin from vertebral column is the neck. Then the thoracic group, it is having 12 pairs from T1 to T12, and the region of origin from vertebral column is thorax or thoracic region. Then the next group is lumbar. It is having 5 pairs and from L1 to L5, and the region of origin from vertebral column is abdomen. Then the group is sacral. It is having 5 pairs again from S1 to S5, and the region of origin from vertebral column is the pelvis region. Then the last group or the 5th group is coccygeal group. It is having 1 pair, that is C01, and the region of origin from vertebral column is the coccyx. So neck, thorax, abdomen and pelvis, and from coccyx these nerves, spinal nerves, they arise, and the group is cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral and coccygeal, and the pairs are 8, 12, 5, 5 and 1. Now total, when we count them as the number is 31. Now moving towards the formation of typical spinal nerve, how the spinal nerve is formed. When we talk about the formation of a typical spinal nerve, all spinal nerves are of the mixed type, that is, they have some nerve fiber as sensory and some as motor. Each spinal nerve is formed inside the neural canal of vertebral column by 2 roots, the posterior or dorsal sensory root and anterior or ventral root. The anterior root, it receives the sensory nerve from the dorsal root ganglion, that is, cell bodies of sensory neurons are located in the ganglion. Now this point is very much important because the cell bodies of sensory neurons are located in the ganglion. Now all of you know ganglion. While the anterior or ventral root gives out the motor nerve. The dorsal sensory and the ventral motor nerves together form the mixed spinal nerve. It emerges out from both sides of the spinal cord through the intervertebral foramen as soon as it emerges out of vertebral column. Now this point is very important. The 4th point is the dorsal sensory and ventral motor nerves together form the mixed spinal nerve. It emerges out from both sides of the spinal cord through the intervertebral foramen as soon as it emerges out of vertebral column. Now moving towards next point, the ramus dorsalis. It is from skin and to muscles of dorsal side. Then the next is ramus ventralis. The largest of the 3 supplies the organs and muscles on lateral and anterior side. Then the next is ramus communicans, the smallest of the 3 and given out from 1st thoracic up to 3rd lumbar, that is L3 spinal nerve. It joins the sympathetic ganglion. Now remember these names: ramus dorsalis, ramus ventralis and ramus communicans. Now moving towards the next. Now this is the diagrammatic representation of the TS and formation of the spinal nerve. Now this is the one portion of the TS. Now here, as seen in the earlier diagram, the gray matter is visible, which is present inside, and the white matter is towards the outside. In the dorsal root, now this is the ganglion. This is called as the dorsal root and this is called as the ventral root, as explained to you in the earlier slide. Now here, this joins here and this ventral root joins here, and it gives rise to this spinal nerve. Now here, the branch, it is called as gray ramus and this is called as white ramus. Now this is called as the ventral ramus and this is the dorsal ramus. Now these are the spinal nerves and these are originating from the spinal cord. Now moving forward, again this is the diagram of the spinal cord. Now when we talk about the spinal cord, spinal cord is very much important as the brain, and it controls the spinal nerves and all the other nervous functions of the body from the neck and below part. So in today's lecture, this was about the brain, then cranial nerves and spinal cord, and about the spinal nerves. Now here our third lecture ends, and in next lecture, fourth lecture, we will discuss about the next part of our topic. So thank you very much all of you. Now we will end our lecture here.